Bahrain has been committed to enhancing and enriching the discourse on human rights, whilst reinforcing an integrated human rights system. Challenges exist, but so do the hopes and the solutions. We explore this and more with our various contributors.
The main body for human rights protection in Bahrain is the Supreme Committee for Human Rights. So we work together here in putting agenda that is collectively view and review any areas need to be focused and promoted. It is our government program that we focus on in our daily life, and we work very hard to promote the human rights at all levels: women rights, anti-trafficking in persons, child rights, disabled rights, the rule of law and the fair trials, and also anything relating to the labor migrants and labor rights in Bahrain here. And we have made great successful stories in many fields that has been received well awarded at international levels. We are very proud that we have managed to create a partnership at the national level through the stakeholders and at the international level with our colleagues and friendly countries. We would like to continue this journey together by engaging everybody with us. Help us a lot in having better understanding and better focus on the priorities we would like to do forward.
Human rights and the environment are intrinsically intertwined. This comes into display as we explore how Bahrain has made great strides to protect and preserve the environment and its natural resources, whilst ensuring the sustainability of the development process.
The Supreme Council for Environment doesn't protect the environment alone, but it does protect the human rights to have a good environment to live in. It is within the 2030 vision to protect our natural resources and to protect the environment. And this plan is actually interlinked with the SDGs. Protecting the nature and protecting the biodiversity is one of the main goals for the government of Bahrain. The Supreme Council for Environment not just registered the biggest number of protected area, but also protected certain species as protected species. As a Vice President for the United Nations Environmental Assembly, we have been working with UNEP and the whole region we're representing to make sure that we highlight the goals that we should achieve. Climate change, biodiversity, get rid of plastics, is one of the main goals that Bahrain is not only concentrating it as on a local level, but we're working hard to do it on a global level. We are now 19% of Bahrain size is a protected area. We have the biggest marine protected area for 1,366 kilometers square as marine life protected area. This area used to be in the past for the pearl diving, and now it is a heritage. It is registered under the UNESCO as a protected marine area.
Cultural heritage embodies many human rights and touches on many human dimensions. It colors cultural identity and social cohesion. And so it was at the forefront of Bahrain Authority of Culture and Antiquities to protect it and to protect the people's rights to enjoy it and to learn from it.
Through culture in all its forms, whether it's art, poetry, literature, history, all these elements really bring people together, bring nations together, communities together. We learn from each other through the essence of who we are and how unique we are to other people, to other nations. At the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities, we firmly believe that we need to highlight and to protect our historic legacy. Historic sites, they hold on to the importance and to the uniqueness of our land. The history of our land, the history of the civilizations that have lived here, the multi-layer of cultures and people who came and lived and explored, has a wealthy legacy that left an important mark and that allowed all of us now to celebrate this diversity. When we speak about celebrating crafts in the Kingdom of Bahrain, we speak about the weaving in Bani Jamra, the traditional pots in Ali. This sense of pride for the towns and villages and areas that hold this type of craft is a wonderful element that brings people together and creates dynamic, whether between the craftsmen, the towns itself, the sense of pride that is carried within that certain society. This is what we aim for, this is what we hope, that always highlights the individuality and the diversity of our land. Most of our programs at the authority focus on education, on understanding the other, on creating programs that allow for people to share and to understand. Our doors are always open to the youth. It's important to inspire and to spread light and to understand that the role of culture is really the backbone for any thriving society.
Bahrain's social makeup and diversity are a source of strength, not a weakness. The Jewish community of Bahrain have arrived since the 1880s in the search of a better quality of life.
The Jewish people of Bahrain were never expelled. Everyone who lived here have always been very proud of their identity as being Arab, as being a Bahraini national and a Gulf national. The Jewish people of Bahrain never experienced anti-Semitism. They never had any segregation. Always free to worship freely and practice their religion freely. We coexist with the rest of the people in Bahrain, regardless of our religious differences. Bahrain embraces a diversity of religions. You have the Muslim, the Christian, the Jewish, Baha'i, Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, all living together as a family. Nobody ever asks us about our religion. We are seen equally as Bahraini citizens. Further to the Abraham Accord, we have the respective Jewish communities of all the 6 Gulf Cooperation Council countries have formed a new umbrella group called the Association of Gulf Jewish Communities, which will actually network and serve people-to-people relations between everyone in the respective GCC countries, and to also help enhance Jewish life in the region. Just like any law-abiding citizen, as much as we know our rights, we also continue to remember our duties and obligations towards our leadership and country.
Unleashing the power of the youth through civic engagement and volunteering have become a pulse of democracy in Bahrain. We speak to the Ministry of Youth and Sports to learn more about this.
Part of the investments in developing the vital institutions of growth is to approach the mindset of youth participation through a series of initiatives that guarantees maximum inclusivity and civic engagement. The Ministry of Youth and Sports Affairs is tasked by the leadership of the Kingdom of Bahrain to prepare and equip the Bahraini youth with the proper tools to become key players in those democratic institutions that will reap productive returns in the future. There are 2 general areas of investments that the ministry oversees that fall under preparing and equipping the youth with those enabling tools. One area is through the Youth Empowerment Centers, and the second one is through the National Strategic Youth Enabling Initiatives. There are currently close to 40 Youth Empowerment Centers spread around the Kingdom, of which the Ministry of Youth and Sport Affairs regulates. Each center is an institution managed by a democratically elected board of directors, and all internal decisions are done via a democratic decision-making process. It's a celebration of democracy, orchestrated by the youth for the youth. While each autonomous center is also financially assisted by the ministry to run programs and initiatives, many participants decide over time to become board members in their area-specific youth empowerment center. Reaching this level requires the youth to be well educated into the process that is almost a mirror image to the process of reaching the highest level of decision making in the kingdom, the upper house of the parliament. Whether it is the Kingdom of Bahrain or elsewhere around the world, we believe that preparing and equipping the youth into how to continue pushing the wheel of democratic institutions forward will guarantee us stability and growth today and in the future.
Engagement and dialogue are key for enhancing a culture of democracy. Mariam Sada explains how Bahrain Institute for Political Development drives this fluid process forward.
The Bahrain Institute for Political Development was established by royal decree in 2005 as a specialized institute to spread the culture of democracy in the Kingdom of Bahrain. We provide training, educational and awareness-raising programs, and produce and publish studies and research targeting members of the Shura Council, the Council of Representatives, members of municipal councils, employees, public sector employees, and civil society organizations. BIPD's work is vital in supporting the values and principles of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa's Reform Project, which aims to develop political awareness among citizens and promote and spread the culture of dialogue and exchange of opinion and peaceful democratic principles in the Kingdom of Bahrain. In the 15 years since our inception, the Institute has supported 4 election cycles through its programs, providing training for individuals standing for election and raising awareness amongst voters on their rights and their responsibilities. The Institute has also developed targeted programs and workshops for the upper and lower chambers of parliament and members of municipal councils. Based on our belief that dialogue is one of the core drivers of political development and change, BIPD acts as a platform for communication between different groups, organizations, and institutions. One of the notable programs was Safara al-Watan, or ambassadors of the country, which targeted students preparing to study abroad, and the Maharat Siyasiya, or political skills program, which targeted employees in the public sector. As we are coming up to an election year, BIP delivered Darrab, or the National Program for Elections, that aims to prepare individuals running for or working on the election in 2022. Emphasizing communication and strengthening our role as a platform, the Institute also organized Tarabat, which brought together high-ranking public officials and the general public to discuss various topics. As an institution tasked with an important responsibility, we are proud of the work we have undertaken over the past 15 years and look forward to expanding our programs even further. More specifically, we hope to introduce more initiatives and programs that target the general public and develop educational programs that will support our mission of enhancing a culture of dialogue and democracy in the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Accountability and responsibility are the foundations of the government work. We'll learn more on this as we explore the transformations and improvements that have taken place, focusing on the anti-trafficking framework, the expansion of the alternative sentencing, and how the independent ombudsman is an integral part of the criminal justice system.
The United States Trafficking in Persons report assesses a country's readiness, willingness, and the facilities that are there to combat trafficking in persons. For the 3rd year running, Bahrain has managed to maintain its status in Tier 1 as the only country in the Middle East and North Africa to achieve that. We did it through being always ready and proactive in our victim-centric approach in combating trafficking by addressing the vulnerabilities before victimization actually happens and before it turns into a crime. The maintaining of this unique status for the Kingdom of Bahrain has led to it being elected as the Secretariat for the Intergovernmental Forum on Combating Trafficking in Persons in the Middle East in its 2nd edition in the United Arab Emirates. Bahrain has also established a specialized prosecution unit for the crimes of trafficking in persons. This is extremely important because of the special nature of the crime and the skills that a public prosecutor should have in understanding and winning the trust and cooperation of a victim. We don't have a migrant society and a local society. We just have a Bahrain society.
Our anti-trafficking in persons specialized prosecution was established in October 2020. We're very proud. Bahrain was the first country in Arab region to set up a specialized prosecution. It is a very specialized and efficient team within the public prosecution. The Witness Protection Unit aims to protect both victims and witnesses while providing them with the support they need. The victims' legal rights, care and protection are central to the work we do.
The Bahraini legislature prepared a special law for alternative sentencing. Enforcement effect of this law helped achieving the objectives of the modern concept of the penalty becoming an integral part of the judicial system towards rehabilitating the delinquent and guaranteeing his or her rights and also protecting the society by tackling crime, of course, and reforming the offender's behavior and reducing probability of returning to the crime. The harmonization and compatibility are applied between the rights of the delinquent and the rights of the affected victims. The alternative sanctions and measures law advantage is that it does not specify crimes or charges that a convicted person may benefit from. It has specified only the period of detention or imprisonment. This is beside the other requirements set by the law, like good conduct, behavior, fulfillment of financial obligations during the execution of the original penalty, and posing no threat to the public security if released from prison. Since its enforcement, the total number of people who benefited from the law were 2,907. Community service and rehabilitation and training programs were the most applied sanctions because they are proportional with most crimes, and by them a convict can be rehabilitated into the society.
We have seen and witnessed progress in the conduct of Ministry of Interior personnel. This is on one hand. On the other hand, the implementations of recommendations in the reform and rehabilitation centers and across its different institutions. In addition to that, the Ombudsman Office has bridged the gap and is working constantly to improve its relation with the community, in fact, to gain the public confidence. It has facilitated a number of means, that is to ensure that the office is easily reachable and accessible. The Ombudsman Office also extended its hand for civil societies, government entities, foreign embassies, and for sure international organizations. Lastly, I would like to add that it's important to note that the public confidence in the role of the Ombudsman Office has been reaching to new measures and levels. The Ombudsman Office aimed to roll a model in criminal dispute resolution institution for the region and hopefully for the world.
The culture of peace is inseparable to human rights, and Bahrain has been promoting this culture within the country and across the region.
As a Bahraini, I am filled with excitement to see the construction of a new Middle East, one focused on a coexistence and prosperity, and I'm eternally grateful to His Majesty for turning this bold vision into a reality. The Abraham Accords are intrinsically linked to our culture of interfaith dialogue and coexistence in the Kingdom of Bahrain. It is precisely because of our country's focus on these values that brought us to the historic moment when our leaders signed the Accords in September. The Abraham Accords are the beginning of a new era for our region, one which we are all very enthusiastic about. As the excitement following the signing continues to reverberate around the world, we are already seeing the underpinning of not just peace, but a warm peace between our two nations and our people. Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates are committed to creating a new Middle East, one built on peace and prosperity for us all. Together we are changing history. We are doing this for our children, because by inculcating the lessons of peace and coexistence within them now, they will grow up to be the future political and business leaders of the next generation, and they will not know of the chasm that previous generations faced.
COVID has engulfed 2020 and impacted every aspect of the individual's life. Whilst the pandemic has presented the kingdom with unique challenges, it has also brought to the forefront the skillful balancing act by the government and the whole community of various rights. The focus has been on saving lives, protecting the poor and the vulnerable, ensuring sustainable growth, and rebuilding in better ways. The message was always clear. Every life matters. Protecting lives and providing healthcare was not only a directive, but a value that everyone has subscribed to.
How Bahrain actually reacted differently. Preparedness. So testing, tracing, and treating has been always our principle. We've been tested every single person that we suspect coronavirus, whether you are symptomatic or asymptomatic. We're still doing the testing, we're still doing the contact tracing, and we're still isolating those who are positive.
We converted to a testing center, and also we have the mobile unit, we have a drive-through, and we have also the center that will examine them for symptomatic, asymptomatic, and even actually the people coming from the airport.
The main aim, how to do it better and how to really be ahead of the pandemic, not to be late for the pandemic. A lot of social media campaign planned very well, and I think this is very critical to any country dealing with COVID-19. To have a good amount of transparency, that's where the trust between the public and the services is very important, and how we are providing them this information.
By December 2020, Bahrain has launched the National Vaccination Campaign, securing access to the vaccine to all eligible citizens and residents. Mobile vaccinations units were in use to reach the elderly and those with special needs. The pandemic affected all, but the government was acutely aware of the impact it can have on migrant workers.
The COVID-19 pandemic was a challenge for everyone, but particularly challenging to the countries that have a high percentage of migrants among them, because they can easily become the most vulnerable segments of society. Bahrain, early as February and March of 2020, realized this vulnerability and took concrete actions, including issuing a general amnesty on immigration, so people won't feel threatened by their stay in Bahrain and their inability to go home, so that they can seek assistance and medical help should they display some symptoms. We also issued over 500,000 warm meals to those who were stranded in their homes, unable to go out and earn a living. We have paid out cash subsidies to a large percentage of migrant workers who were unable to earn a living as well. At the same time, the continuous medical services that were offered to them, from PCR tests all the way to vaccinations, free of charge, including full medical assistance when they're diagnosed with COVID-19, has led to a unified society in Bahrain.
The pandemic had a significant impact on students and the educational process around the world. All efforts in Bahrain were made to ensure that education does not stop.
In Kingdom of Bahrain, learning didn't stop. We believe that education is right for everyone. We needed to make sure that we use ICT in education. And this happened in Bahrain a long time back. We started a national project in Ministry of Education for our students back in 2005. And this national project is called King Hamad Schools of the Future. And by 2015, we moved to a more advanced stage. We call it the digital empowerment in education. And in this stage, we focused more on the human being. We think that our students are the most important target we are looking for, so we need to empower them. Even before COVID-19, ICT was complementary to support the traditional teaching and learning. But during COVID-19, and I think also after COVID-19, will make much use of ICT. And that's give us an opportunity to win the first prize of ASESCO, Open Educational Resources Prize. And we've got all the support from the leadership within the Kingdom of Bahrain. The king himself, he talked to the students, the teachers, the parents, and lots of partners joined us to ensure that everyone got also his chance to learn. And in this campaign, 10,000 laptops were distributed for students who need these laptops. I think Kingdom of Bahrain gave a good example of how the community work together to ensure that learning will continue and will not stop. We cater for all students, that's why we have inclusive education. Ministry of Education continued giving the different opportunities, especially for our special needs. Those special needs are catered in schools and even outside schools. When it comes to closing schools or opening schools, the most important thing is to ensure that we have a safe environment for our students and also our teachers and all the administrative staff in these institutions.
Organizing religious festivities and functions during the pandemic was a challenge. But as the religious leaders, the community, and the authorities worked together with the assistance of technology, new and innovative ways were introduced in order to be able to conduct those religious events while being COVID conscious.
Being appointed as in charge of the community, Catholic community in Sacred Heart Manama Catholic Church, we have enjoyed a tremendous freedom to practice our religion and faith. We have received a lot of support from the government, from the royal family too, and the best gesture has been the cathedral, the upcoming cathedral. COVID-19 has definitely impacted a lot and affected a lot of lives, not only individual lives, also the life of the church. The church has been kind enough to organize. We have been kind enough to organize for them the online streaming masses. We do have the sacraments, but with restricted number of 5 or 10, but keeping and respecting the precautionary measures given to us by the local authorities here. The moment we came to know about the COVID-19 impact in Bahrain, we decided by ourselves to close down the church, as we attract thousands of people in this place. It has been difficult, yes, to answer people as to why we closed down the church before anybody else, but then they have really appreciated later on, understanding the impact of COVID-19. So we took it on ourselves to collaborate with the government as we attract thousands, so that we could play also our role in fighting and combating COVID-19.
We as a Hindu community has been here for generations. We trace back our history to about 200 years. The traders in Bahrain, and we settled down. And from the beginning of the time, Bahrainis have been very accommodative with us. That's why we have been able to build. I think it is one of the oldest temples in the Gulf countries. Hindus have been very comfortable here in Bahrain. We as a community really feel proud. It's just like our second home. Government of Bahrain was very proactive in controlling the situation. We took our initiative to get it done in that way. We closed down the temple one by one, and slowly by slowly we closed down the temple. And then our activities were continuous, because it's a religious activity, we cannot close the activities. It's a routine activities which we have to do. In order to devotees to participate and be present, we had all the festivities or events live cast. We had done a live cast on all the activities done. Then we have taken the initiative to open the temple in a very controlled manner. Initially we had only very few devotees which were allowed to come inside. Slowly by slowly we increased the situation, how we were, if we were able to comfortable to control them. And I think we were very successful in that. I think we have community as a whole has done a very good job.
The temple was closed for the devotees, but all our religious activities were open, indoors done by our priests, and all the major activities which were there. So we showed that entire activity online on our Facebook page.
For a reflection on how 2020 has been in terms of the human rights agenda and priorities, we speak to the National Institution for Human Rights.
Because we are a human rights institution, we focused a lot on the approach that the Ministry of Health had towards dealing with the pandemic, whether it's in isolation places or quarantine places. There came His Majesty's decree of pardoning in March 2020, hundreds of prisoners, which affected positively the way that places of detention dealt with the pandemic, because it decreased the crowd and the numbers in prisons. Then came the second milestone, which is alternative sentences. The directives were always to increase the implementation of, as a national institution of human rights. Currently we have 8 people serving alternative sentences within the grounds of NIHR. The second thing that we've been involved in is actual visits to prisons and places of detention to make sure that the necessary procedures that maintain standard health is in place, whether that is masks, cleanliness, sterilization, the approach towards COVID-19 as per WHO procedures. Temporarily, I'd like to say, suspending actual visitation. This happened as early as March 2020, and as we speak today, a year almost into the pandemic, in Bahrain, that is still being implemented, which is a very positive thing. It was replaced with virtual visitation. It was really a positive response from both families and those in prison. And I believe that until everything is under control, it will continue to be that way. The medical appointments, this is very important. All of Bahrain has replaced, I think, for a period of time, rather than going actually to see your consultant or have a review with your consultant, whether it's pharmaceutical or actual consultation with virtual. That was implemented beautifully with prisoners. Some of the challenges that we face as NIHR, and we work with our stakeholders and partners with this, is that we always are faced with the challenge that comes out that says that COVID has been detected in places of detention and no one is doing anything about it. That is absolutely not true. It is being handled from the top to the nittiest, grittiest approved procedures by the government and as directed by the World Health Organization. At NIHR, we believe that the well-being, the physical well-being, physical, psychological, and mental and social well-being of any person in detention is very important. We highly encourage partners and stakeholders to continue to take in the precautions that are necessary to maintain the right to health to all prisoners.
With the unity and commitment of Team Bahrain, the Kingdom continues to progress in advancing the human rights priorities and strengthening its democratic ecosystem. We're stronger together.